Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about Panorama Consulting Group. We are a niche consulting firm with critical mass and focus in the ERP market. We provide three primary service offerings to our clients. The first is ERP software evaluation and selection. Second is ERP implementation project management. And third is ERP organizational change and benefits realization. We have depth in targeted industries, including manufacturing, distribution, supply chain, and mid-size high-growth companies as well. Perhaps most importantly, we are ERP vendor independent and neutral. So the information we're about to share and the metrics we're about to share are based on our unbiased and objective research. In addition to broad client expertise and industry expertise, we also have broad and deep ERP software expertise. We've worked with over 100 different ERP software packages, including the three solutions we're going to talk about here today, SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft Dynamics. We've also worked with dozens of Tier 2 and niche solutions such as Epicor, JD Edwards, IFS, Infor, etc. So just diving right into our study here then, to give you a quick overview, we completed a study between 2005 and 2008 that looked at 1,300 organizations across the globe that had recently implemented ERP solutions. We conducted the quantitative survey of all 1,300 organizations and augmented that quantitative data with some qualitative information from deep dive interviews with a sampling of the organizations. We included organizations of all sizes, ranging from small and mid-sized organizations all the way on up to multinational and global companies. We also looked at organizations that implemented a variety of ERP solutions, such as Tier 1, Tier 2, and best-of-breed solutions. What we found in the study, or the first finding from the study, is perhaps not surprising, and it's very consistent with what other industry analysts have outlined, which is the Tier 1 vendors do dominate the market in terms of revenue and market share and number of users. So you can see that SAP leads the pack at 35%, followed by Oracle at 28%, and Microsoft Dynamics at 14%. And then here we gathered all of the Tier 2 solutions, which includes Bond, Epicor, Infor, SysPro, and dozens of others, into one Tier 2 category, which comprises of 23% of the market. And obviously, this market share is a bit higher if you look just at small and mid-sized organizations, but for the overall market, the Tier 2 solutions comprise of about 23% of the market. Now, some of the common ERP challenges that companies face in ERP implementations, regardless of what type of software they're implementing, include some three metrics here that we look at in the study. The first is that 93% of implementations take longer than expected, 65% cost more than expected, and 79% fail to realize at least half of the business benefits that they expected during the implementation. So we can see here that regardless of what type of ERP software you choose and implement, there are some challenges, and there are by no means a slam dunk success for getting this type of software implemented. When we look at ERP implementation duration, we see that, perhaps not surprisingly, SAP and Oracle tend to lead the pack in terms of implementation duration. And when I say lead the pack, I mean they take the longest. So SAP on average takes 20 months to implement. Oracle EBS takes on average 18.6 months, followed by Microsoft at 18 months and Tier 2 solutions at just under 18 months. And again, keep in mind these are companies of all different sizes. To be fair to SAP and Oracle, they are typically and more oftenly implemented by larger and more complex organizations, so that by their very nature is going to extend the implementation duration. But you can see there is a fairly distinct difference between the different solutions in terms of implementation duration. When we look at implementation costs, we see a similar pattern. We see that SAP costs the most, on average $16.8 million, followed by Oracle at $12.6 million, then Tier 2 solutions at $3.5 million, and Microsoft Dynamics at $2.5 million. So you can see there's a very distinct, even more of a pronounced difference there in implementation cost. And if we look at implementation cost as a percentage of revenue, we see a similar pattern emerge, which is 19% for SAP, followed by 10.5% for Oracle, 6.7% for Tier 2, and 5% for Microsoft. So Microsoft is clearly kind of the value leader in terms of implementation cost, and SAP and Oracle are significantly more expensive. Now, when we look at satisfaction and business benefits, this is where SAP tends to fare better than some of the other competitors. The benefits factor which is the percentage of organizations that realized at least some of the expected business benefits that they had expected to see in their implementations, was 72% for SAP, followed by Tier 2 and Microsoft, pretty much neck and neck at 68%, and then trailing by Oracle at 58%. If we look at employee and executive satisfaction, here's where Oracle does very well and SAP does very well as well. Both SAP and Oracle are right around 76% for executive satisfaction, followed by Microsoft and Tier 2 solutions right in the mid-60s. If we look at employee satisfaction, Microsoft and Tier 2 solutions actually lead the pack in the kind of mid to high 70s, followed by SAP at 73.6% and Oracle EBS at 60.3%. And then the final row you see here is the satisfaction composite, which is an average of several different satisfaction criteria that we looked at in our study. The final main metric that we looked at in comparing these different solutions is business risk. So what we like to do in the study is look at how many companies realize some type of material operational disruption at go live, and how does that compare between the different vendors. And we can see that actually, and this is actually, to me, the most surprising metric in the study, which is SAP actually leads in terms of they're actually the lowest risk. So they only had 50%, which is still a fairly high number, by the way. I'm not suggesting that's not a high number, but relative to the competitors, they only had a 50% risk factor compared to high 50% range for Oracle and Microsoft and over 60% for Tier 2 solutions. So if we were to summarize each of these solutions that we're looking at here today, Dynamics, SAP, and Oracle, we can see that Microsoft Dynamics is number 3 in terms of market share. As we've discussed, it does take less time to implement Microsoft, but there is a high level of variability in the implementation time, and that's something we didn't really hit on in the previous slide, but there is a very wide range there, even though their average is lower. The cost side, however, is very predictable, consistent, and relatively low. So on the cost side, Microsoft Dynamics does very well. There's a medium or average level of benefits realization, satisfaction, and business risk for Microsoft Dynamics. So that's kind of a summary of how Microsoft Dynamics compares to some of the competitors in the marketplace. If we look at Oracle eBusiness, Oracle products have the number 2 market share. The duration is below average and highly predictable. If you look at SAP versus Oracle, SAP has a much wider range and variability in implementation duration, whereas Oracle is operating within a much tighter bandwidth. So in some ways that does lower your risk based on that metric. The cost for Oracle is above average, second to SAP, and like I said before, about 25% less than SAP. They have the lowest level of benefits realization, but the highest level of executive satisfaction. So those are a couple trade-offs there, and there is a medium level of business risk. Now, if you look at SAP, they have number 1 market share, the longest duration, and there's a high level of variability in that duration time. The total cost of ownership of SAP tends to cost more than others and is about twice the average. Now, again, keep in mind this is partially because of larger companies implementing the solution, but even when we look at cost as a percentage of annual revenue, SAP still is the high-cost solution. Now, the flip side is that they are the leader in terms of satisfaction. So once companies get through the implementation, they have the highest level of satisfaction and the lowest business risk of all the solutions we looked at. And then when we look at Tier 2 vendors, which is 23% of the market, this is the area with the shortest duration, lower